channel. So today we are going to be talking about the disappearance of Trevor Deely. This in particular is probably one of the most bizarre cases that I've covered. The area that this man went missing from had a ton of CCTV footage. There were so many opportunities where something could have been caught, but the pieces somehow never puzzled together. Trevor Deely's case is one of the highest profile cases in Ireland. Trevor was 22 years old and he was currently living in Dublin, Ireland when he went missing on December 8th, 2000. He grew up in Naas, Ireland with his parents and his 3 other siblings, and he didn't really know what he wanted to do with his life when he got out of school. He wasn't really one to excel in a bunch of different things, but when he decided last minute to take a computer course in Dublin, he fell in love with it, and this ended up being the career he went to, and this is what brought him to Dublin. He took a job at the Bank of Ireland Asset Management headquarters in the IT department, and he really excelled in this position. He was great at his job. He was an incredibly reliable worker, got along with everyone in the office. He had absolutely no enemies. They said he was probably one of the nicest and happiest people to be around. Before he went missing, he had just arrived home, I think on the 5th of December, from a long trip to Anchorage, Alaska. He had met a girl over the summer that came to Ireland to visit for a while, and she was from Alaska, so he decided to take advantage of one of his friends' discounts. One of his friends worked for an airline company, and he was able to get some really awesome tickets to wherever he wanted to for a vacation. He got back, he visited with his family for a little bit, I think 1 or 2 days, and then on the 7th he came back and attended a work party. It was the holiday season. They had a huge event that Thursday night, and they went to a couple of different bars. They ended up at a hotel where the main event was, and then Trevor, along with a few other co-workers, very lastly ended up at another bar. At 3:25 a.m. Trevor decided it was time to head home. Now Trevor typically walked from work or wherever he needed to back home. It was, I think, only about a 20-minute walk from pretty much anywhere, but this particular night was not the best weather. It was raining pretty hard, the wind was pretty extreme, so he decided to last minute take a walk back to his job and grab an umbrella. There was a taxi strike going on at the time, so there were no other options other than to walk home, and he felt like at least having an umbrella would make it a little bit more bearable. The bank was in Wilton Terrace, which was just a few minutes away from the bar he was last at, so he started to head that direction. When he got to work, there was another man there working the night shift. He talked with him for a little bit. Trevor decided to send a quick email, and then he sat for a little while drinking a cup of coffee with the coworker, and then decided finally to actually go home. And he was seen exiting the building at 4:02 a.m. The next morning, he never showed up for work, and he never called in either. He was not the kind of person to do this, but they said considering the night before they had this big holiday party, a few other coworkers didn't show up either, and they figured they drank a little bit too much, they're unable to come into work. So the company let it slide. Saturday passed, Sunday passed, and then Monday came, and Trevor, again, no call, no show to work. And this is when they knew something was very, very wrong. It wasn't just recovering from a night of drinking. It was 2 days now, plus an entire weekend, that everyone realized they had not heard from Trevor or seen him. He called his family, and his parents immediately drove down to the area and went to his apartment. When they knocked on the door, he wasn't there, and neither were his roommates. They had actually been on vacation the entire weekend. And at this point, they realized that they don't even know if he made it home that Thursday night. And that took away crucial time in his investigation. His family desperately searched for him. The police have specifically said they have never seen a case where people have put themselves so far into an investigation and done so much on their own. They were on top of things even before the police were on top of things. They had already made flyers. They were passing them out everywhere they possibly could. They went house to house passing out more flyers. They went into pubs. They asked local businesses along the way for CCTV footage. His brother even took the walk he would have taken home multiple times and checked in every nook and cranny. His brother checked in trash cans in every single alley, under stairs, big dumpsters, and there was not a single sign of Trevor. None of his items were left behind, suggesting foul play. There was no sign that he had been hurt anywhere. He literally just vanished. While they waited for hopefully some sort of information, the police were already doing their own thing. Police had gone to his work, checked his computer, talked to the coworker he saw that night, and they really tried to look into the email he had sent, thinking, you know, maybe he sent this random email in the middle of the night to go and meet someone, run off somewhere. But despite all the searching, they came up with no information that benefited the search for Trevor. They started searching deeper into CCTV footage, and they ended up finding a few interesting bits of footage. At 3:05 a.m., CCTV footage shows a man wearing all black approaching the bank at the first gate. Now I'm going to put up a picture real quick of what the bank looks like. There is the first gate Trevor would have passed, and then the second gate a little further down. Now this distance is only 20 feet. This is not a huge distance. When I was first hearing all this information, I was picturing something very different. So actually seeing the bank is going to be crucial to understanding the possibility of a lot of the next things that happen. So at 3:05 a.m., this man goes and stands behind this pillar at the front gate. And you can tell by the way he's standing there, he is quite obviously trying to hide. He's wearing all black. He looks incredibly suspicious. And he ends up just standing there for around 30 minutes. Again, keep in mind the weather that night. There were many other places he could have stood where he would have been covered. He could have gone home if he was just a pedestrian walking around. But this man chose to stand in the rain, hiding behind a pillar for that extended period of time for seemingly no reason. At 3:34, the man then takes a call on his phone and he steps out from behind the pillar, and almost at the exact same moment, Trevor starts to walk by. And Trevor's on the phone as well with a coworker inside that he is about to meet and have coffee with. And so he doesn't really pay much attention to this man, and he also doesn't seem too concerned about this man standing in the sidewalk. But as soon as Trevor walks by, the man turns around and quickly follows him. Now keep in mind, I said it's about 20 feet from the first gate to the second gate, and you can tell Trevor's walking pretty quickly. Obviously it's raining. He more than likely wants to get out of the weather. However, on a second camera beside the back gate, you see the man in black, or assumingly the same man in black, show up before Trevor shows up to the gate, meaning that man in black would have had to run to get past him and hide behind another pillar, and then Trevor walks up. Now, I will get more into why people think this is not the case a little bit later, but just keep that in mind while I'm going through the story. When Trevor gets to the gate, he ends his call, and him and this man have a brief conversation. Now, something interesting that I found about this conversation is that, again, Trevor does not appear concerned at all, which leads me to think this is someone he has seen before, possibly someone he knows. I know personally, if I were out in the middle of the night after a night of drinking and a stranger in all black, you know, was hiding at one point behind a pillar and then ran ahead of me and then tried to have a conversation with me, I would probably be a little bit tense. But Trevor seems completely fine. Trevor then goes inside, and this man in black stands there for a couple minutes and then walks across the street and out of view of the camera. So essentially he had just been standing in front of the bank for literally no reason. He ended up standing there for about 45 minutes and then just walked off. Again, you see Trevor leaving the bank at about 4 a.m. and he heads down the road towards his home. They had record that on that walk, he had made a call to a friend that he had spoken to earlier in the night. He was trying to make plans for that weekend, tell this friend all about his trip to Anchorage, but it went to voicemail, and then you don't see Trevor again until 4:14 a.m. when he is seen passing an ATM near Haddington Road and Bagot Street Bridge, which was about a 15-minute walk away from his apartment still. Then, about 30 seconds after you see Trevor, you see a man in all black quickly walking after him. Police could not say for sure if the first and second man, or even the third possible man, the three different men in black, were all the same person. But considering the strange circumstances every single time, I think it's pretty safe to say they were the same person, or it was a couple of people all working together. Being so dark outside, this man's choice of attire, and for all we know, it could also be a female, it was almost impossible to figure it out. And despite sending this picture out to the media and begging the public to come forward if they knew who this stranger was, no one could identify him. They decided to turn their attention to the water under the Bagot Street Bridge, and they searched this river thoroughly. They thought it was possible that if Trevor had been a little too intoxicated, he could have accidentally fallen into the water. They brought in dive teams and searched that particular canal, all of the connecting canals. There was even one more body of water he would have passed over on his way home, and they checked that as well. And they checked everything incredibly thoroughly, but they found nothing. They didn't find the umbrella he was holding, they didn't find any clothing items of his, and they didn't find Trevor. There was one area, the Grand Canal Basin, that couldn't thoroughly be searched due to, I'm pretty sure, its depth and size, and there's also no way to drain it, because if they did, all of the buildings around it would collapse into it. So while they did pretty much rule out all of the waterways, it is still possible he went into the Grand Canal Basin, and we will never know. So then police decided to look further into his walk home. Maybe something happened along the way and there's evidence to show what. And that's when they were led to the Embassy Belt, which is the area where all the different embassies are held. They found out that President Clinton was actually supposed to arrive that Tuesday, so just a couple of days after Trevor was last seen. And if you are unaware, at least for the US, and I'm assuming for other countries, they send their security team days ahead of time to clear the entire area for the president's safety. The advanced security team for the president of the United States had swept everything, and they check every possible area. They checked in manholes, they sealed them completely off, they check in every single trash can, they check every item inside the trash can, they check all the alleyways, they check cars surrounding homes. They do not miss a single place. Now, while this seemed like a really great thing, you know, they would have found something, they've searched this whole area, we can rule this out, there was also the huge possibility that they unknowingly destroyed bits of evidence while doing their search. They did everything over the weekend, and Trevor wasn't reported a missing person until Monday, so they hadn't known to keep their eye out. Granted, I will say, as a highly trained team, I am sure if they saw blood or anything that looked like some type of murder scene, they would have reported it. But when it comes to things like Trevor's umbrella, or maybe just a shoe lying around, or maybe car parts were in the road from someone hitting him, or, you know, small things like that, they wouldn't necessarily look at that and immediately think, oh wow, something happened to someone. They might just think it's trash and throw it away. He hadn't used his phone at all since the early morning hours, but his sister had called him multiple times over the weekend, and she said that up until, I think it was Monday, the phone would ring all the way through. So this also helped them rule out that he was in any sort of body of water, because cell phones at the time, the second they hit water, they were done, and even if the phone didn't break or die, the signal for sending out a phone call couldn't possibly penetrate the surface of the water. Now, this is just how things used to be. Cell phones are a little bit different nowadays. Police at this point had not much to go on at all. They had searched the waterways, they searched his walk home, they searched his computer, his phone. His family said they didn't check his phone well enough, but keep in mind, technology at this point was just starting when it came to tracking cell phones. The police claimed they did everything they absolutely could. They had nothing. So I think, kind of as a last-ditch effort, they decided to talk to the girl in Alaska and look further into the trip. I personally, the moment I read that, didn't think anything strange of it, but I guess there were a couple of odd things that happened. So Trevor had actually been messaging this girl that he met multiple times, and she was trying to get him to not come. She never really invited him. She never told him she'd be available to see him. She actually said she was very busy and he shouldn't show up at all. But he said it was his only chance that he had, so he kind of showed up anyways. Police, and I'm pretty sure parts of the family, all separately flew out to Anchorage and decided to speak to this girl and figure out kind of what he did on his trip. According to the girl and some things they saw, his trip didn't quite go as planned. As she said, she was busy, it didn't work out, and I guess she gave him some sort of odd greeting when he got there. Some people think he might have read a little bit too much into maybe possible feelings being there, but they just weren't. So then this led a lot of people to believe maybe he came back from this trip upset. You know, maybe he thought he was going to go out to Anchorage and have this fairy tale ending with this girl that he might have had feelings for, and because it didn't go well, he might have come back and decided to A, either go back to Alaska to try again, or B, take his own life because of how upset he was. His passport and everything were still inside of his apartment, so they knew he never went back to Alaska and he couldn't have traveled outside of the country, so they really honed in on taking his life. However, according to his friends, roommates, everyone that knew him, that is not something that he would have done. Despite the trip not going great in regards to the girl, he told everyone else that his time otherwise was absolutely amazing. He visited a pretty awesome place and he couldn't wait to tell his parents about it. That's why he was calling his friend to talk to him about it that weekend. And again, he had made plans to see someone that weekend. A lot of people who know they're going to end their life won't make plans for the future, and he seemed to have pretty set plans the night that he disappeared. If he wanted to end his life again, he would not have cared about being rained on or the wind. He wouldn't have made it a point to go all the way back to his work to grab an umbrella. So pretty quickly they were able to dismiss the idea that he ended his life. Now they were looking directly into foul play. After all, there was a man in black 3 separate times following or hanging out around Trevor right before he disappeared, and the area that he was in when he was last seen you would assume would be barren at that time, but it actually wasn't. The area he was walking through right after the last time he was seen on CCTV footage was an area known for sex workers and the men that escorted them. There was a lot of gang activity going on in that particular area, and I'm pretty sure, I couldn't figure out if it was a couple months before or a couple months after, but there was another girl that was stabbed to death in the area. Also, at that early time of the morning, there were many businesses on that particular street that were getting their early morning deliveries. Police tried to get in contact with many of the different sex workers, but seeing as they usually went by aliases and they changed things up every so often to keep themselves as anonymous as possible, they weren't able to get in touch with a lot of different people. Police and the family started also having a couple of issues at this point, as this always tends to happen. Police never went to get the CCTV footage from all these different areas. It actually was the friends who got it. At this time, VHS was what all of this was recorded on. This isn't digital, and they usually took the same VHS tape and re-recorded over it within 24 hours to usually a month. So the last tapes that showed his last bits of movement were almost lost by police. They never went and checked, and the friends got to it, I think, just hours before it was going to be deleted. So this made people wonder if maybe police forgot a whole bunch of other security footage. You know, keep in mind, he went missing early morning on Friday. That's all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and parts of Monday that nothing was checked. If businesses wiped everything clean on Monday morning from the weekend, that time that no one knew he was missing, that means there could have been footage of him in other areas. There might have been answers somewhere, but they're forever lost. No tips came in, and then in 2017, 17 years later, they decided to try to enhance the different bits of CCTV footage in hopes of finally identifying this strange man in black that appeared in all of these different images right behind Trevor. Filmmakers David Mooney and Mark Kilbride actually spotted something in the footage, and they call it the second man. Now, I have watched all of this footage. I've watched the enhanced footage, and I felt strange about all of the CCTV when I first watched it because of their explanation of the timing not really matching up, and the information they uncovered about this second man really threw me for a loop. So as we know in the first clip of footage, this stranger in black hides behind the pillar for 30 minutes. Right when he receives a phone call, just seconds later, Trevor passes by him. Again, 20 feet of distance. This man waits a couple of seconds. And then when you flash over to the second area of footage, this man somehow has passed by Trevor and ducked behind another pillar, and this didn't set off any alarms for Trevor at all. A lot of people, including me, think that there was a second man in black already standing there hiding behind this pillar. Due to the way the cameras are set up, you kind of see this man peek his shoulder over, and then he fully comes out and stands beside the gate when Trevor does. If this man had been standing there the entire time, it's very possible he never could have been caught on CCTV footage. So this first man, we're assuming, goes to the second gate. Could have actually been a second man already there. And when you look further into the footage, 2 minutes after Trevor enters the building, you see two men and possibly a third man in the back just standing at the gate staring into it. Now, people were infuriated that this was never brought up before. These two strange men were just standing really ominously looking in towards the bank. Police came forward and they said, no, these are actually two employees of the bank and we've already talked to them. However, here's my question. First of all, from what I've seen, I'm pretty sure these two men are with the strange man in black. Why would two employees show up at the gate and just stare into the building for a couple of minutes? I don't understand that. I know they never went inside. The gate was unlocked, so they could have if they wanted to. What was their reasoning for coming and standing so oddly, just staring, and then they just leave? But for some reason, all of this strange information was just kind of dismissed by police just because they couldn't identify the men in black, and they'd already talked to these two co-workers that have apparently some good enough reason as to why they were just standing there. And then a huge tip came in. A man came forward claiming that he knew exactly what happened to Trevor that night. This man said that a well-known family in the Kremlin area had come to him and said that he was the one who killed Trevor, but it was just an accident. According to this man, this well-known criminal, whose name has still not been released, approached Trevor after some sort of confrontation with him on a street on his walk home, beat him up, threw him in the back of a car, and took him to a house where he, I'm pretty sure, tied him up and was just trying to scare him. At least that's what this criminal said he was doing. He had his gun out, he was messing around with him, trying to freak him out, and then the gun accidentally discharged and ended up killing Trevor. So out of panic, because this is not what his intentions were, he took Trevor and he buried him under a drain. Police checked into the background of this alleged killer and found out that he had a huge criminal record. He was known for being in the drug trade, and his associates were also known for running sex workers on Baggett Street right near the bridge, which is the last place that Trevor was seen. So this was enough for them to go and search, and they searched a ton. There was a 6-week search. They brought in all sorts of equipment. They dug everywhere they possibly could, and they actually ended up finding cocaine and a gun. But after further analysis, they realized it was not connected to Trevor, and they ended up leaving with no more information than they went in with. And this is when we get into the theories, because nothing more has been found. And you would assume someone who was captured on CCTV footage so many times with some ominous man in black following him around, you eventually would have had an answer. But unfortunately, that is not the case. There are a lot of theories out there. There are theories that he was hit by a car, by a drunk driver because of the taxi strike, but I have quite a few issues when it comes to this theory. They walked the entire way. He took his route home. His family walked his route home many times. There would have been some sort of evidence that Trevor had been struck by a car, whether it was skid marks from tires or blood. If he was hit by a drunk driver and they wanted to get rid of the body, what's the fastest way to do it? Throw him over the bridge into the water. However, when you see drunk drivers, most of the time they hit and run. They don't want to stick around. They don't want to get rid of the body. They don't want anything to do with any of it. They just kind of drive off. So the fact that his body was not found in the middle of the road or in the water rules out the two largest possibilities of someone hitting him drunk driving. There's another possibility that someone hit him, put him in the back of their car, and then went and took him and buried him somewhere. But again, the chances of that are fairly slim, as well as the fact that his umbrella wasn't left anywhere that we know of. Well, the president's security could have taken it and thrown it away to kind of get rid of the trash in the area. You would think if you were holding an umbrella and you were hit by a car that it would probably go flying. The wind easily could have picked it up and taken it farther away. Yet no umbrella was found, and no one came forward claiming they saw an umbrella open just hanging out on a street somewhere. There are a lot of people who also think that he was taken by by some sort of gang to get any information out of him about the bank. He was an IT worker. He did a lot with the computers there. He could possibly help someone transfer money or have passwords, things along those lines. But my largest issue with this theory is that no one knew he was going to go back to the bank. He last minute decided to go run in and get an umbrella. So if this was a planned attack on Trevor, it just would have had to fall into place at the last minute, and I don't find that very likely. But this is when we get into the two co-workers that were seen standing at the gate. Yes, while Trevor did last minute decide to go to the bank to grab an umbrella, he easily could have told his coworkers this before he left. Man in Black was waiting behind this pillar for 30 minutes. At this point in time, Trevor probably didn't even know he was planning on going back to get an umbrella. So the idea that maybe Trevor was specifically targeted, I don't think is very likely if it has something to do with these men in black in the videos. However, I think these men in black and the co-workers easily could have had something to do with what happened. Again, it's a bank. There's a lot of money. Money makes people do a lot of crazy things. And what better way to get information on a bank than to work there? People who worked at the bank were probably the only ones to know that there was going to be a holiday party. And what better time to try to rob a bank or get information from a bank than when every person who works there is out drunk? I think it's very possible that he accidentally ruined a plan. This man had obviously been waiting there, and then these other two co-workers show up, appear to possibly be standing near this random man in black, and they don't go inside. I wonder if they were standing there looking in, realizing, hey, Trevor ruined our entire plan. We didn't think he was going to be there. He's not leaving. And that brings me back to the fact that he didn't seem very alarmed when this person in black just popped up out of nowhere and possibly ran past and in front of him. What if he knew this person? And what if they panicked thinking, wow, what if he goes and tells someone that we were hanging out here all sketchy in the middle of the night of the holiday party? And what if they decided to get rid of him? Keep in mind that phone call that he sent on that last little leg of his trip. He called his friend, and it was just a, hey, just want to see how you are phone call. When the police talked to his friend, that's not something Trevor was known to do. If he wanted to call him and talk to him, he would have just called the next day in the morning. But instead, he made this random phone call in the middle of the night, and I'm wondering if he did this to try to get someone to back off. Whenever I'm walking around by myself downtown, if I feel like someone is following me or if I feel like something funky is going on, my first reaction is to pull my cell phone out and act like I'm talking on the phone or call someone that I hope is going to pick up at that time, so that if anything were to happen to me, I basically would have someone hear it. And I honestly wonder if that's what he was doing. This person that was following closely behind him was not that far behind him. It is very possible he knew this person was following him. There is quite a decent bit of gang activity in this particular area. There are lots of big criminal families in this area at the time. I think it is most likely that he stumbled into the wrong thing at the wrong time involving the bank he worked at. There were just too many odd things and people behaving strangely in the area at that time of night, and I think he was just a victim of circumstance. The family is still doing everything to keep his face in the eye of the media. They're holding on to the hope that keeping his face alive is going to bring him home eventually. Every lead has led to a dead end. There is no physical evidence. They have just guesses to go off of and this strange CCTV footage with men no one can identify. But the police and the family both refuse to give up, and hopefully that eventually leads them to the right answer.
Trevor is missing since the early hours of December 8th, 2000. Shortly after we learned of his disappearance, we discovered CCTV footage of him walking down Haddington Road at 4:14 a.m. To this day, this remains the last confirmed sighting of Trevor. The reason we are here today is to appeal to that person or persons who knows what happened next. As a family, we have never believed that people can disappear into thin air. We know someone knows something, and we ask that you come forward to put an end to this relentless nightmare. Many people over the past 16 years have questioned why we continue to search for Trevor. The answer is simple if you knew Trevor. We can sum it up by saying if the situation was reversed, he would never give up on us. Somebody somewhere knows something.
I will have all the information listed down below if you have any tips to put in. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give me a big thumbs up, hit the subscribe button to become a member of the family, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!